Hi guys, Marika here with the real-time coloring of the Autumn Fairy card that I've done for the Lawnscaping challenge. The whole color scheme is picked from the little image from the Lawnscaping challenge, which was picked from Pinterest, which was all of these like deep oranges and brown colors. It was a sunset, it was some pies, I think it was pumpkins too, and it was a whole bunch. I will have a link in the description down below to the Lawnscaping challenge. And so I wanted to make kind of a housewarming card for autumn. I have chosen not to use sentiments for this card, but this video is just the coloring and it is in real time. The only thing I have cut out is the switching of pens. You would be surprised on how much time it takes switching pens and how much time it takes to actually edit this to remove that. But anyhow, I do that for you. And also I like these kind of videos, so I want to make these kind of videos. So the house I'm using is from a lawn fawn stamp set. This really adorable fairies. I think they're supposed to be like summer fairies because there's a lot of flowers and stuff in the stamp set, but I thought they would work awesome for a autumn card. So I'm starting off with the house itself, and I'm going in with really dark grays, W6, 4 and 2 for the house itself. I have a tendency to use more tendency to use 3 colors instead of 4 when I work with lawn fawn images. Now there are a few things where I've actually used 4, mostly because they are part of a color scheme I used before. Like for these windows, I have 4 of them, and they are going to be used in the background. So I thought it would be nice to have them the same kind of warm light from the window welcoming you into it. I'm also I'm doing the door in the same grays as the rest of the house, but a little bit darker. So I'm starting with W8 as the darkest, so that it will kind of stand out from the house but still be a part of the house. That is a balance, trying to figure out how to make things not stand out from each other but more kind of lie in the same image. And you might think that, God, this is so dark, Marika, why it's so dark? Well, because of the background's gonna be very, very strong, this is actually gonna finally fall back into the background, being that it is the background and the fairy is going to be the kind of focal point. A cute little fairy holding a pie. So that is why I've chosen the color scheme as I've chosen it. And for the hat, I'm using the E40s because they work great with this ink. The ink I'm using is the Lawn Fawn walnut ink, and I found that both the black licorice and the walnut ink works pretty good with Copics. So I'm using those. However, ink is different on different kind of surfaces, so if you are going to play around with these inks, I would try them on your kind of paper that you usually color on, stamp it, let it set for a while, and then use the colorless blender and the little trick, the blender trick, to see if it will kind of move, because if the ink moves on your surface, you shouldn't use it. You should always be careful with those kind of things. But in my case, I have found that the Lawn Fawn, both the walnut ink and the black licorice, works great with the Copics. My favorite is still Memento Tuxedo Black, but I do use some other ones now and then. I'm doing all of the shading on the house so that the light source is from the upper right corner, and this is because there is where I'm coloring the sun. And now I'm using a whole bunch of different oranges and browns to kind of build up this sunset. I would probably call it a sunset. And I'm using YR14 as the lightest orange. I'm using Y35 as the darkest. I would probably have been able to go in with like Y37 to carefully get that blend a little bit better, but at the same time, if you look at the image, it is actually a little bit the sun is standing out, so that works great. I'm sorry, someone is drilling in my walls. I don't think you will hear it, but it just got me wondering where it was. But anyhow, for the next darkest colors, I'm using YR18, and then I'm carefully blending that in with YR14. I will actually go over all of these colors again. When you're working on making a background, blending is important, going bit by bit, small pieces at a time, and really making the surface wet with ink. Those are my tips to get a good blend. I am very much aware that it is sort of stripy, this blend, and not perfect gradients, but it's okay. I think if you wanted even better, you would need to use like airbrushing systems and stuff. I don't have that. Wish I did though, but we'll see if that would be something. I am coloring all over these little swirls here, and that is something that I wasn't realizing when I did this, but most of the swirls will disappear because I'm coloring right over them and they doesn't stand out that well. In hindsight, I should have after coloring everything, I should have gone into with some kind of a fine liner, hopefully a brown one, and filled in all of the lines, or not having those stamped around it at all. But it's okay. It's okay. I could have made these swirls like with the Copics instead. For the ground, I wanted it to be a little bit darker, so I'm starting with the W6 and then I'm going over with the E18. And I'm actually realized when I started working with the W6 that it was way too light to be able to do a good brown or good ground. That was the word. So instead, I'm going in with the W7, which is just one little teeny tiny step on top of the W6 to make the ground darker, but I also went in and did some kind of vegetation behind the house, and this is to kind of ground that edge and make the viewer start looking kind of from that base, from the darker base towards the sun, or vice versa, but basically making a V in the bottom left corner, and the sun is kind of making a V in the upper right corner and kind of shaping it. It's usually I just do these on a idea basis. I'm like, yeah, but it would look good if I do this. I don't really think about it, but the explanation would be trying to make the viewer watch from one corner to another, and that is kind of what you as a card maker do. You use the same kind of ideas that you use when photographing things, the rule of thirds, and trying to make a trip for your viewer so that you would make sure that they look at certain parts on the card. Now I'm going back in with all of the colors to kind of go from dark to light. This is where I will start playing around with the tip to tip technique, and that is because the E19, as you can see here, have a very sharp edge towards the YR18. So what I'm doing is I'm going in with the tip to tip technique and picking up some E19 with my YR18 and let it in fade out to get a better blend between the edges. So that is a really good tip. The reason why it's needed is because many of my color schemes are basically done for clothing or smaller parts. So when you take that kind of color scheme and you move it out like this into the sky, you kind of the blends aren't as perfect as they should be. I'm going to do the same with the YR14. First I'm wetting all of the part of the YR14. This will also make, as I'm layering it second time around, the color will also be a little bit darker than what the YR14 is initially when with just one layer. And then I'm doing the tip to tip technique to try to make those kind of round edges a little bit more blended. I'm not doing a very good job at it, but it's okay. It's enough for me to kind of enjoy it. And then I'm going in with the YR35. And I think I was thinking about doing the tip to tip technique until I realized that it was supposed to have hard edges, so I just left it. Then I'm going in with the skin for my little fairies, starting with the both faces, and I'm not using the EO5 as I usually do because their faces are so small. I only using the 4 colors I usually use, which is the E11, E21, E00 and E50 as the lightest color in the middle. Then I'm gonna do the kind of cheeks. I'm going in and making the smallest little dots with the R32 because the R30 will kind of make it bleed a little bit and then just blend really nicely. Then I'm gonna go in with the skin colors again to kind of build up those shadows in the faces, but also to do the arms of the fairies, which I kind of forgot the first time around. And then I'm just going in with the E21 again. The shadows I'm putting on these are very simple. I'm not doing anything fancy, no definitions of any sort, just trying to get a nice blend on their faces because they're so adorable little fairies. And to finish it off with the E50. Then I'm going to do the hair, and this is kind of a how to do very with hair strands. So what I'm doing is I'm take my darkest color first, I'm flicking in and both from the base of the head and from the corners of the bangs, and just making small flicks, and in the end they will kind of meet up a little bit zigzaggy on the top of the head, and that is making kind of a natural shine on the hair, so it looks like they have shiny dark brown hair. I'm using the E40s because I love the E40s. It was also the color I used on the roof of the house, and you know me, I like having color schemes that are very reduced, so I might use a lot of pens per color, but I'm using 4 for the hair. But I am also choosing to go with fewer color families, color blends, sort of, just to keep everything together a little bit more. Yeah, a reduced color scheme for my cards. I kind of like it. I kind of like having that the images kind of speak for themselves, but that is also a personal personally I kind of like those kind of color schemes. That doesn't mean that what I'm doing is right or wrong or anything. Any way you want to do it and you like to see it, that it's the right way for you. Hair is taking a long time to make, but I'm using 4 colors, the E49, 47, 44, and I'm finishing it off with a little bit of E43 for the lightest parts. For the dress, I'm actually taking the same colors that I used for the background and coloring with those. So E18, E19, YR18 and YR14, and you will see how much better they blend on a smaller surface, because it's exactly the same colors, they just blend much better. So that is the thing. When I always had it a harder time to doing bigger areas of blending, because the colors don't blend as easily. But I chose to go with the oranges on their bodies again to tie in with the rest of the card. Then I'm going to go in with the warm grays. I'm using warm gray 1 and 000, and this is because I want 00. I wanted to use the 00 because that is the absolute lightest gray, and then just 2 steps over for the next color. Just trying to keep it very light, but still with a little bit of shading in the bottom, and then just blending out the 00 with the colorless blender. For the little pies, I'm actually just using the E40s. The pie on the image was very light, so I thought that using the E40s would be a great way of coloring this. So I'm using E44, E43, 42 and 41 for the simple colors. And that is the coloring. If you want to see how I made the card for this, there will be a little eye up in the corner, which is a card which will take you to the video. And here is 2 other real-time coloring videos. And I hope you like the video. If you do, please thumbs it up, it means a lot to me. If you have any questions, just comment down below, and I'll see you later. Bye!